We started off by going through all the cars we had as kids on our walls, posters, right? So that was a good starting place. So things like the AC Shelby Cobra, 67 Chevelle, 911s, we got through those pretty quickly, 308 Ferraris, 328 Ferraris.
We also made our share of mistakes.
Yeah, we did. What was our very, very first car?
The Aston
V8.
V8.
Aston Martin. Yeah. Okay, so this is a good example. Aston Martin 77 V8. Yep. Epic car. It looked like kind of like American muscle in the front, European business in the rear. Had a really good exhaust note. Everything about it was cool, just never worked. It would go out, we'd put that car, we'd take it apart, put it back together so the next member could drive it.
It was just an older car that we couldn't figure out what was going on with it. My predecessor, the guy before me, had taken one of the heads apart and figured, okay, this is what it is. But unfortunately, he didn't adjust any of the valves. I ended up having to redo all of the valve lashes, redo all of the timing, and resync the carbs. Finally got the thing running after like 3 years of just f***ing around with it. Got the thing running, and as soon as I got it running, they got rid of it.
We're at this place called the Classic Car Club. I'm Zach Moseley, and this is Mike Prichinello. We run it. We have a fleet of cars, about 40 some odd of them, ranging from 60s American muscles to brand new exotic cars. And our job is to keep them on the road, get members behind the wheel, and deliver awesome automotive experiences, right?
Yeah, we actually do keep all 40-something cars on the road. It's not too often you see something like this. Actually, that's not true. You see this all the time, but it doesn't last very long.
Yeah, people walk in here all the time and say, how do you keep these things going? It's pretty simple. You got to drive them. You know, you can get the best car out there, show-winning trophy car, and you drive it 10 miles, the thing breaks down because it never gets driven. Everything's dried up and not working, so you got to drive it. You have to exercise mechanical sympathy. You know, Mike and I could get in to this Shelby Cobra running on 3 cylinders with no clutch and drive 400 or 500 miles on it and get there because we were meant to race Le Mans in the 50s. You know, we just have to get
side of the road.
Yeah, we know how to nurse the thing into the pits, but we can hand the key 100% totally running to someone who doesn't know what they're doing, and they can blow it up before the first stoplight. So you just have to feel the car and sympathize with it. You know, every time you step on the gas pedal, there's thousands of moving parts capturing a chaotic explosion and turning that into kinetic motion. And you have to have some appreciation for that.
Yeah, just because an old car has an 8,000 red line doesn't mean you should bring it to 8,000, right? It's just a line on a gauge, right? Like, have a little sympathy in your foot. Sort of feel out how much a car can handle.
Yeah, and then the other stuff is basic maintenance. Every car we get in here, we put it on the lift for 4 weeks and go through everything and drive it. And Mike and I try to break it just to see what else is on its way out and replace it and kind of get ahead of the curve on all that stuff.
My name's Mike G. I take care of all the cars here at Classic Car Club. The best thing about working here versus just your typical shop is it's not a rush to get the car done. It's a passion to get it right because we're going to have, any one of 300 plus different guys with lead feet. You don't want to be able to get into it and find a lot of stuff broken. You want to be able to get into it and everything is where it should be.
You got to add a bit of modern equipment to an old car. You drive modern day cars and you expect them to stop in this distance. Things like brake boosters are really important. Put in power brakes when we can. If something happens to have drum brakes, we put in some disc brakes, right? Just to keep people safe. We like to make things go faster, actually, as long as they stop quicker. Zach will always do some kind of work on cars. A lot of the old cars will do like custom headers, custom exhaust, let them breathe a little better, make them sound better.
Cooling systems, that's the number one thing that old cars do is overheat. So put a big aluminum radiator and electric fan in, make them more usable.
Yeah. Everybody loves an iPod adapter. Gotta do that, right? But yeah, it's all about making them run more like people think they're gonna run. I use this analogy a lot where I heard the guys from KISS talk about their reunion tour, and they're like, oh man, we had to do all these fireworks and all this stuff, because that's how people remembered our shows in the 70s, even though they weren't like that at all. But you got to live up to what people thought things were like. People think of 67 Chevelles as just like a grenade of energy down the street, right? But we had to create all of our cars to be what they think they're supposed to be like, and that's a lot of work.
The rest is pretty simple. The more interesting part is the heroic recoveries when it does go wrong.
In 2006, I think, we drove from New York to Miami on all the back roads, and we were in the Blue Ridge Mountain Parkway, which is a really great driving road. And there was a bit of a gaggle of Porsches. I was in a GT3, and there was, I think, 3 others with us. Actually, this was a trip to New Orleans. We still on
I was setting the pace in a Mini Cooper S.
Yeah, Mini Cooper S that we brought to Helix.
Yeah,
and it was a bit souped up, but still, it was a Mini Cooper amongst GT3s, and stuff. And it was the middle of the night, and Zach hit a rock in the road.
It was like I saw it, and I kind of zigged and then zagged, and just bam, right in the middle of the wheel, and the wheel was, round like this, and it had this fold like this.
We're like in the mountains, where they make moonshine and kill people.
Yeah. We had AAA on the phone. They're like, "What's your cross street?" And they're like,
"There is no cross."
I don't know. I saw a mile marker like 120 a few miles back. Like,
so now it's getting dark, and it's starting to rain, and the only light is thunder, or lightning, I guess would be the light part of it. So Zach got the wheel off. We ditched him because we had to get to the bar. And so we left him on the mountain, and Zach, with a hammer, grass, and duct tape, got that car off of
We were bending it back, like it hadn't cracked, and we were bending it back, like, oh, we can almost get it to hold air, and like, just got it just about where to hold air. The last whack, it's like, cracked, and a chunk fell out of it, and it's like, oh no, it's over. And then get out the duct tape, stuff it with hay, and I drove down that, and it was pretty rough. It was like, boom, 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 boom.
It's 20 miles. Though.
Yeah, no, but we made it. We made it all the way down.
I would say have a fire extinguisher in your car. It looks pretty bitchin', if you mount it like in the center column there. It's actually good to have.
Because you don't want to be that dude like with his brand new Lamborghini to stand there, his arms folded, watching it burn to the ground. If there's a little fire and you can put it out, save your car.
It's not the way to wind up on Jalopnik. You're gonna be like the next meme. This car went on fire, actually. It happens to all the best of them.
Yeah, this one's intelligent though. It went on fire in the wash bay.
Yeah.
Literally, we finished washing it, started up, but we had a hose there, put it out, burned up the air box and the air filter.
So have a fire extinguisher. That's rule number 1 on the side of the road. Rule number 2 is get off the road. If you're actually losing power, you have to actually get off the road. Don't be that dude in the right lane, who broke down on a bridge because he wasn't planning it out and everybody's got to sit in traffic.
I've done that.
He's done that,
actually. Uphill on the Williamsburg Bridge, the fuel pump went on the jag, and I could feel just as I got on the bridge, and there was no, like, the point of no return. I heard a little sputter, and then it kind of sputtered some more. I'm like, oh, come on, foot down, let's go, let's just get to the top of the crest, and I could see it coming, and then it died.
You see it going,
and I started rolling backwards down the bridge. So I just had to wait while traffic stacked up behind me. It was like Sunday evening. It was a disaster.
E-Type Jag, that is like the quintessential classic car club car, right? 68, 69. Anybody will tell you that a Series 1 is the prettiest. It's got the covered headlights, the grille opening is a little small, or it's a bit more of like a feminine look to it. And then the 2 got a little bigger, and then the 3 was a 12-cylinder. They're all very beautiful. If you put them all next to each other, you would probably go for the first one, Series 1, but it never worked. It always overheated because of that little opening in the front, not enough air got in there.
The key to owning old Jag is throw away the original motor. That's what we did. It had when it came time to rebuild the original E-Type motor, it's about $10,000, give or take, by the time you go through a motor and you have to change everything around it. This is a Series 3 XJ6 motor they made until 1987 with the same architecture. It's going to be the longest running basic engine design of anything. They made it for like 40 years. And the carb and exhaust manifold and the original oil pan bolt right onto this XJ6 block. It's basically, we have a disposable motor now. You can buy a whole running XJ6 for about $1,800 or pull a running motor for $400. And it has a better cooling and oiling system. It's modernized. It's more powerful.
Also, buy the year that, not the year that everybody wants, but the next one that everybody's going to want. I'd never say buy a classic car as an investment because you're just going to spend a ton of cash on it and it's really never going to be a good investment for you. But with that said, you should at least sort of know what the next one is, right? So you're not so far underwater. So everybody wants a 73 RS Porsche, right? That's the one. It's $400,000 now. But the 964 RS America, you could get for like 45 grand. And I think that's a sleeper car. I think that's a really, really cool car. It's kind of better than the first one. And it costs 1/10 of the price in Classic Car Club math, which is appalling, but I think right in that case.
And it's going to be mechanically stronger. It's a more modern car. You can actually drive it.
Mm-hmm. We got a 328 over there. There's yards and yards of you could talk about that car. That's a car that you'd make the decision to buy based on complete nostalgia.
So you've been working hard. You're a hard-working journalist at Jalopnik, and you just bought yourself a new Honda Civic. It's about 26 grand, and you say, "Oh man, a 308 Ferrari. I saw one for 24 grand. It's a bargain. Maybe I can get that instead of my Civic." Don't do it. even well, I will say these 328s especially are pretty good workhorses as Ferraris go.
They're better than new Ferraris.
Yeah,
they're better than new Ferraris.
They're pretty strong. Relative to in Ferrari terms, the parts are pretty reasonable, but it's still like, a clutch disc is $800, and it needs a major service every 30,000 miles or 3 years, or 15,000 miles or 3 years. Yeah. That you have to take the whole engine out, change all the seals, everything, and the parts for that are about $2,500. The labor is probably $4,000, and then they're going to find about $10,000 of other that's wrong with your Ferrari.
But I still do love them. It's a funny thing, my enthusiasm for cars has not waned whatsoever, but I just try to be more practical about them now.
This is actually one of the 9 original cars that we had here. It was from Backdraft, and we beat it up so much that it became their test car. They actually changed a lot of modifications on the car just because of what it had gone through with us. It's a simple car, it's something that there's not a lot of computer with it, there's no ABS, there's no electronic crap that you have to deal with most of the newer cars. It is basic, just a basic original, motor, tranny, drive gear, lights on and off. It doesn't even have a radio in it. So it's pretty fun to work on.
I know French car. Oh, I would love to have a French car in the fleet. In our London fleet, we have an old Citroën.
I think DS.
Yeah, DS12. Is that right? DS12?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, really cool. They make that noise as they drive by with the air ride and all that stuff. And I would like to have one here, but there are no parts here. So in England, it makes a lot more sense. It could not run there efficiently. Here, it could not run inefficiently.
Yeah. Jensen Interceptor. The London club had one, and it was the best looking car they ever owned because it never turned a mile on the road. It didn't have a rock chip on it. It was like perfect and glossy, but every time they went to start it, the British electronics would fight with the American motor, and like the Italian interior would light all on fire. It's crazy.
This is a category to never buy. Never buy Frankenstein cars. By that I mean cars made by 2 different manufacturers. So that car, American drivetrain, English body, English electronics, that never worked. We had a Pantera, Di Tommaso Pantera, very, very cool. Italian body, so you're already in for some trouble. 351 Cleveland in it, American power plant. That once you start doing those things, once countries get together to make something stupendous, it never happens. I'll tell you, so having owned hundreds of cars in New York City, it's not an easy place. As an individual, you don't really get a parking garage, you just get a spot. And old cars need garages because old cars need tools and old cars need maintenance. And so you can't just go to 18th Street parking garage and have that. It's a really difficult thing. It's one of the reasons why the Classic Car Club makes a lot of sense in New York. There's also the roads. Traffic's not as bad as people make it out to be in New York, actually. That's not compared to most cities, we don't have it too bad. We do have swimming pool-sized potholes. Cobblestones. Not the smoothest road we could have driven down. So you got to learn that a bit. So having a car of any sort of consequence, whether it's a supercar or a classic car, you're going to go through your set of A-arms. You're going to have to replace your bushings more often than other places just to keep it all tight, and we do that all here. But at the same time, what's cool about it? If you take let's say you take a convertible through Midtown, right? And you're driving through sort of all the skyscrapers, and you get to see a side of New York you really don't ever see when you're walking around or whatever. We've had a lot of fun in cars, actually. One time we had our old 68 911 out that had this like ragingly loud exhaust and like a big Le Mans style wheel. And Zach and I were hysterical laughing all through side streets of New York. It was like echoing through the buildings. That was a lot of fun. We've spent 7 years finding really good roads, and we've tested every car possible in every kind of environment, from traffic in Midtown to full out on highways to country back roads. There's a lot of places to go. For me, like driving classic cars it's a really cool time to actually sort of go slow. I'm always into driving fast and being on the track and being in really competitive cars, but I don't know, man, driving something like an old E-Type Jag, it just kind of slows things down a bit. I actually really like doing it. forget how much I like doing it until I'm in one.
We had a 308 Dino, which actually you guys were bugging me about when I kept dropping the price, trying to sell it, because it was rusting through like every corner of the car. It's just going to fall apart. But when it first,
and it's a bit unloved.
When it first showed up, like Mike and I got in, and Mike started driving, and the steering wheel was over there, and his feet were over on the other side, and like the gear shift is all grindy, but it made this kind of great like popping sound. It was running really rich, but it came off gas like ba 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 ba. We just drove from here to 14th Street. We were like laughing the whole way. This thing is awesome. We need it for the club.
Big grins and bleeding eyes. Right?
Yeah.
There's so much gasoline smell coming through the car, but it was a lot of fun.
And
cool.
you wouldn't get that in a new BMW. You'd just be bored listening to NPR and driving up Hudson.
Come on. Turn green.
I'd say probably one of my most favorite heroic saves of a car was that Mustang, actually, the white one back there. It had we put a 5-speed gearbox in, and it had a cable clutch originally that went right through the header, so the thing was just bound to melt. And someone was coming back in traffic and melted, and eventually the cable broke, and he called me just like stuck. And it was the day of the Gay Pride Parade, and wasn't far, he was on 14th Street, so I'm like, all right, let me come get the car off you and go where you have to go, and we'll figure it out. And I got there, and I'm thinking, like, can anyone come tow me? What am I doing? It's Sunday afternoon. I'm like, I can probably get it back. So I just put it in first, turn the key, bump started off the starter, and just like, sort of matched shifts all the way through. But then I came across Christopher Street. Just with people going across. I'm like, all right, you guys can get out of my way because I have no clutch. I'm not going to stop. As soon as the light goes green, I'm hitting this starter again, popping off.
You couldn't even get into neutral, right?
No, I mean, what I would do is I'd pull it in neutral, coast to a stop, and then put it back and shut the car off, put it back in gear, and as soon as the light went green, just bump it. But people were still like doing the late cross. I'm like, you don't want to do that in front of me because I'm going to launch right into you. Because you kind of had to go for it. You had to like lurch and then get on the gas to keep it all going.
You had to commit.
I managed not to collect any people. It looked like
It's a really nice way to say kill, collect.
Yeah, it looked like I was trying to terrorize gay people. I love gay people, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't trying to run you over. I'm sorry, I was just trying to get home in one piece.